We are seeing another record surge in coronavirus cases, raising new questions about just what comes next. More than 40,000 new cases were reported yesterday alone, leading officials in both Texas and Florida to pause their reopening plans. And the White House later today is planning to hold its first public coronavirus briefing in nearly 2 months, with leaders insisting they will not shut down the economy again. Let's talk about this now with Chris Meekins. He is the healthcare policy analyst at Raymond James. Chris, good to see you. You're hearing about these states now. They're not going back into lockdown mode, but they're not exactly moving forward into the next phase. Is that the right tactic at this point, do you think?
I think it is the right tactic. I mean, what we've said from the very beginning is that really states need three things in place. They need testing to the point that the positive tests coming back is below 5%. They need contact tracing in place so that you can actually identify everyone who's been in contact with someone who tests positive. And then you need a population that's actually willing to take mitigation measures when we see improvement, when we see problems arise. And what we're seeing is, at least on the contact tracing and on the population, a lot of states are failing. And that's why we're seeing the uptick in California, in Florida, in Texas, in Utah, in Alabama, in Arkansas, in Arizona, really across the country, is because we're failing in those ways. So yes, it makes sense to pause until you can get your hands around the current crisis.
Chris, what's the probability that because of the rising infections that we're seeing, we will see more deaths over the next week or two? I think a lot of investors are not thinking about that outcome.
Yeah, initially people were saying, well, there's an uptick in cases, but we aren't seeing more hospitalizations. Then naturally, after a certain number of days, hospitalizations go up. Well, what we know, after hospitalizations go up, after a period of time, deaths usually follow. The one positive sign, or maybe two positive signs, is one, the people getting infected are younger, which means they're less likely to die from this. And two is that we actually have much better treatment protocols. So while we may not have a drug that cures it, we understand better when to put people on ventilators, when to use high-dose oxygen, when to do all these other treatments to help address it, which should make the death rate lower than what we saw at the peak in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut.
You know, Chris, as far as the stock market is concerned, by and large, investors have been ignoring the rise we've been seeing in these COVID-19 cases until I'd say the past couple of days. Is it time for them to be paying a little more attention? And has the market, in your view, gotten ahead of itself given all of the headlines about COVID?
I see a lot of volatility from COVID and the election going forward. So my colleague Ed Mills, I think, joined you the other day talking about the likelihood of a Democrat sweep being higher than the market anticipates. When we look at COVID, while we don't think a nationwide or statewide shutdown is likely to occur, we do think you could see some localized activities, right? There are three options, and we put this out yesterday to our clients, that really we could see going forward. One is you can pause reopenings, which is what Texas and Florida has done, though largely speaking, they were reopened already. You could see entities reverse course and go back a phase, which we haven't seen really yet. Or you could see completely new mitigation measures. I think what we're likely to see is a pause and very targeted areas of restrictions when needed. Like yesterday, the governor of Texas said, no new elective surgeries, but he limited it with a huge caveat saying, well, only in areas where if you do elective surgeries, you can't care for enough COVID patients. If you can do electives and have COVID patients, you're fine, continue on. I think we're going to see more of those types of approaches.
Chris, set the scene for us on this one. The Trump administration overnight filed a brief urging the Supreme Court to invalidate the Affordable Care Act. If for some reason the Affordable Care Act is in fact overturned, what type of chaos would that cause from an economic standpoint as the country is dealing with a pandemic?
Yeah, the bottom line is if they overturn it and they overturn it in a way to say the next day, basically it's over. I think if they did overturn it, they would give a runway for new activities. But the reality is dramatically more people would be uninsured unless Congress takes action to pass something new to replace it. Republicans are assuming that if the Affordable Care Act is struck down by the Supreme Court, that will bring Republicans and Democrats together because no one wants to see 20 million plus more people uninsured. I think that is an ambitious goal. We saw that really both parties are not working together on healthcare. And when you look at the election results, if you do see a Democrat sweep, we could see healthcare reform 2.0, which could go even further than the Affordable Care Act went, like on the public option, which Joe Biden mentioned in his speech yesterday.
So which presidential candidate does the pharma industry want to see in the White House for the next 4 years, Chris?
I don't speak on behalf of the pharmaceutical industry, but I suspect they would probably rather have a Trump in the White House because at least up to this point, he has been all bark, no bite on drug pricing. He said a lot of things, but he actually hasn't done much. You've seen prices come down really because of the approvals on the generic side and FDA approvals. But when it came to the rebate rule, when it came to international pricing index, importation still hasn't made a tangible impact. So, there's been a lot of noise. There hasn't been a lot of substance. I think if Biden gets in the White House and you see a Democrat sweep, pharma is going to be targeted and they're going to have to give up something probably.
All right, we're going to leave it there. Chris Meekins, healthcare policy analyst at Raymond James. Good to see you. Enjoy your weekend.
You too.